So my friends, welcome to a new Sway update video. Yes, quite a bit has happened in the last few weeks. After our steep rise up to nearly $5.25, it went down completely into a correction and thus into our buying range of approximately $2.40 down to $2.20. That was the first major buying zone where I said, okay, I will accumulate here once the time finally comes. But still, Sui was really hit hard. We also had a correction of 68% here. By now, everything has almost completely acclimatized again. We had a pump here up to nearly 127% and thus also nearly $4. There were announcements about some kind of Pokemon game and such on the SUI blockchain. But honestly, news like that interests me very little. And that's why we're now looking at the chart. What is my further approach? Will I sell? Because I absolutely have to say something about that. And are we possibly even going to enter a trade here, a short or long trade? You'll definitely find out in today's update video. So make sure to stay tuned until the end. Before we start, feel free to leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course feel free to join the free Telegram talk and Signal group. If you're interested in updates, news and signals, feel free to join. You can find the link for free below in the video description, and if you want to buy SUI or do anything else with it or trade, you can do it all on my partner exchange BingX. The link for that is also below in the video description or in the comment section. You also support the channel and me. So SUI $3.32. We really had a phenomenal increase here, as I just mentioned in the intro, of 127%. Before that, of course, there was also a completely crazy pump of nearly 70%. But as I said, our buying zone was hit here. That was the buying zone that I introduced here a few months ago or brought into play. That was also my first buying zone. Of course, such buying zones can always be better. You don't have to be a clairvoyant for that, but still, it's simply about getting a good average price here. It's not about getting the best entry price, but rather a good average price that you can live with and where you can ultimately take profits. And that has actually proven to be relatively true. If we now only consider our average, that means approximately in the middle. We already had 65% at the peak here and are still 42% in the plus. However, I am currently considering whether to take some initial profits. Why? Because I simply assume that we will see another major crash. Not only with Bitcoin, but also with the altcoins, and especially SUI. Has in the last few days, and you can really say in the last few days if we look at it, since Monday, April 21st, we had a sharp pump of 85%, which is still at 58%. That's really intense for a short period. One should really consider whether this entire movement, and I'll show you this briefly from a daily perspective, where we have a vector here, whether it won't be recovered, at least down to $2.20, then we would be back at the entry point and could effectively re-enter. That's currently my idea behind it. What I'm simply paying attention to at the moment, we have an inefficiency here that should be filled. These are all points that should be included in the analysis. At the same time, draw the fib level from our high to our low here. Then we also see that theoretically we would have had a buffer up to almost $4, so $4.03 said, but we didn't reach that. That would have been the golden pocket, but we already struggled on the daily to reclaim the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement level. This means we are already in a massive resistance area here with the RSI being totally overbought, not sold, but bought, and we should pay extreme attention to that. Sure, we now have the 200 SMA on the daily view here as support for the time being. Okay, all well and good. We'll also dive into the smaller time frames in a moment and take a look at that. But otherwise, for me, this is slowly becoming a sell scenario again. Why? Altcoins at the moment, we don't have an altcoin season. Bitcoin could still be facing a major correction. The stock markets are facing a possible major correction once again and are at resistance. That means everything we've just bought can already be turned into profit. Even if it's just to take out the initial investment and simply leave the 43% profits in, we should be fine with that. No longer acting on that, having this greed in the market and trading altcoins until the end, even though we're no longer in the altcoin season or possibly not in a strong bull run in general. These are the points that simply make me inclined to sell at least some shares now. Feel free to write your opinion in the comments below, what you think about it. Let's go into the smaller time frames. Yesterday we had the first smaller correction which was a bit stronger, down to just about $3.15. Yes, that's all well and good. On the 1 hour view, we also tested the support here again last night, and now we are currently moving upwards. I believe, and I already mentioned this in the update video this morning about Bitcoin, that we will see a recovery in Bitcoin as well as in the stock markets. And I can imagine the same for SUI. Even though it would be really intense if we were to rise again to the area of approximately $3.55 or even $3.65, because that would be about an 8% pump, or even 9% in this case. I can imagine that we might rise again, fill the inefficiency, and then really completely fill the inefficiency that we just mentioned on the daily view. We also have this on the smaller time frames, fill these and fall back into the area of $2.50. That's roughly my analysis. If we rise into this area, this would definitely be the short area for me, to then take the short down to the inefficiency and thus back to our buying zone. That means if we rise here, I will also sell portions. Either 50%, because we would then be 50% in profit overall, or take out the initial investment and then, according to my strategy, re-enter down here. For completeness, perhaps, the largest buying zone, which I hopefully will never reach, is down here at approximately $1.11 and goes down to 43 cents. We then need to categorize that separately. If we ever reach this area, then we can simply split this zone again. That will probably end up more in this area because we also have an inefficiency down here. So we create this zone, but it will be categorized once we actually get down there. I honestly hope not. But it's better to have a buying zone set up rather than later wondering, where should I enter now? That's my analysis. Feel free to share your opinion on it, what you think about it. And otherwise, that's it from my side. I wish you a nice and successful day. Feel free to leave your altcoin requests in the comments. And otherwise, that's it from me. Until then, bye-bye. And as always, stay cool, guys.